forward, adjusting his apron as if it were a vestment. "Welcome, Father. I am Jack Tripper, your son-in-law." The Reverend squinted at Jack. "A tripper. I hope you are more of a solid ground kind of man. My daughter tells me you lead a life of culinary missions." "Indeed," Jack said, his heart racing. "I bring hope to the hungry. I turn the humble noodle into a testament of faith." Jeanne, sensing the Reverend's gaze lingering on the single bed in the corner, quickly intervened. "And they are so devoted. They share everything, including their commitment to separate prayer rooms. It's a very modern, ascetic marriage." The evening dinner was a high-stakes performance. Jack served a vegetable stew he called the Parable of the Peas, while the Reverend questioned him on his theology of flavor. "And tell me, Jack," the Reverend asked, leaning over his spoon, "how do you view the temptation of the dessert cart?" "As a test of character, sir," Jack replied without missing a beat. "One must appreciate the sweetness, but never let it distract from the main course of life." The tension was broken only by the sound of Stanley Roper banging on the ceiling from below. "Tripper, stop the preaching and fix your leaky faucet. The missionary work is flooding my kitchen." Chapter 16, The Roper Intervention. Stanley Roper was many things, but a man of tact was not one of them. Convinced that Jack was still one of the girls, yet confused by the Reverend's presence, he decided to perform his own brand of marriage counseling. He caught Jack in the hallway as the Reverend was taking a tour of the local park with Chrissy. "So, Tripper," Stanley said, nudging Jack with a wrench, "how's the wife? Getting used to the old ball and chain?" Jack glanced nervously toward the open apartment door. "Mr. Roper, please. It's a very delicate situation." "I bet it is," Stanley chuckled. "I saw that father of hers. Looks like he could turn a man to stone just by looking at him. If I were you, I'd stay safe. You know what I mean." "I'm always safe, Mr. Roper," Jack said, trying to push past. "Look, I'm gonna give you some advice," Stanley continued, blocking the way. "Marriage is like a car. You gotta keep the oil changed, or the engine seizes up. And in your case, well, just make sure you don't run out of fuel. Though I don't think you have much to worry about there, do you, Tinkerbell?" The double entendres were flying thick and fast, and Jack was drowning in them. Just as the Reverend returned, Stanley added, "Just remember, Jack, in this building, the landlord always knows who's wearing the pants, or in your case, the apron." The Reverend stared at Stanley, then at Jack. "A peculiar man, your landlord. He speaks in automotive parables. He's a visionary, sir," Jack managed to say. "A visionary of maintenance." By the time the Reverend left the next morning, he was convinced that Jack was a good, if somewhat eccentric, man of the cloth and the ladle. As for Stanley, he remained blissfully unaware of the true nature of the marriage, satisfied that Jack was still the safest man in California. As the three friends sat together on the balcony, watching the Santa Monica sunset, Jana raised her glass of orange juice. To the Reverend's departure, she toasted, and to Fresno staying exactly where it is, Chrissy added. Jack sighed, feeling the weight of the lies lift if only for a moment, and to being just roommates again, at least until the next relative shows up. The lights of the pier began to twinkle, and the rhythm of apartment 201 returned to its natural, chaotic beat. The Rendezvous on apartment 201, a novelization of the Santa Monica Chronicles. Chapter 1, The Warden and the New Yorker. The sun hung low over the Santa Monica Pier, casting long, amber shadows across the boardwalk. In the modest apartment complex managed by the Ropers, the air was usually thick with the scent of salt spray and Stanley's cheap cigars. But today, the atmosphere inside the Roper residence was particularly brittle. Stanley Roper sat in his armchair, his face a roadmap of minor grievances and chronic stinginess. He was a man of simple needs, most of which involved not spending money and not being bothered. Opposite him, his wife Helen was meticulously filing her nails a rhythmic scritch-scritch that was beginning to grate on Stanley's nerves like a saw blade on a rusted pipe. Be quiet, Helen, Stanley hissed, his voice a sharp whisper. You're gonna wake Karen. Helen didn't even look up. Filing my nails is gonna wake up your niece. It's not the filing, Stanley, it's the breaking. Every time you break a nail, you swear loud enough to wake the dead. Stanley scowled. Karen, his brother's daughter, had flown in from the bustling chaos of New York City. To Stanley, New York was a den of iniquity, and he felt a crushing weight of responsibility to ensure that Karen left California with her virtue and her sanity intact. To Helen, however, Stanley wasn't being a guardian, he was being a jailer. She's tired, Helen, Stanley argued. Jet lag is a real thing. She's trying to adjust to a new time zone. She's trying to adjust to living the life of a nun, Helen retorted, finally setting the file down. You never let her out of your sight. You're more like her jailer than her uncle. Stanley bristled. That's ridiculous. She's having a good time. Didn't I take her to Disneyland? Didn't I take her to the museum? Didn't I walk out to the end of the pier with her? I even tell her every night about my experiences in the war. Helen stared at him, her expression deadpan. Oh, sorry, Stanley. I must have drifted off just hearing you list those things. The core of the issue was that Karen was young, vibrant, and to Stanley's horror approaching the age where dating was a reality. In Stanley's mind, Santa Monica was crawling with freaks and weirdos and perverts. He didn't want Karen exposed to the modern world of the late 70s. Why don't you let her meet the kids upstairs? Helen suggested, a mischievous glint in her eye. You mean the Andrews sisters? Stanley asked, referring to the trio in apartment 201, Jana, Chrissy, and Jack. Patty, Maxine, and Tinkerbell, Helen joked, knowing full well Stanley's perception of Jack Tripper. Stanley paused. Jack Tripper. To Stanley, Jack was safe. In the complicated dance of their living arrangements, Jack had convinced the landlord that he was gay so that Stanley would allow a man to live with two beautiful women. Stanley viewed Jack as a harmless, non-threatening entity.